My Life in Song, Part 2 by Rob Lamb. He put a new song in my mouth. I feel like I'm starting a whole new life, one of faith, adventure, and a continuation of my musical journey. Attending The Ohio State University, I came across a verse in the Bible written by a songwriter named David. In Psalm 40, he shares his joy in song when he penned the words, "He put a new song in my mouth, a song of praise to our God. Many will see and trust in the Lord." My reaction was, wow, that's what I want for my life. What would that look like? Where do I start?
And he put a new song in my mouth.
I adopted this lyric as my life verse, asking myself, how can I channel my newfound joy of the Lord into music that could also reach others? While attending a campus Bible study, I met a few musicians, namely Mike Meese, Jim Snedeker, and Jack Kramer. We formed an outreach band called Daystar in 1976. In addition to playing live shows all over the campus of Ohio State and other colleges, we wrote and recorded a number of scripture songs that were popular among our network of campus churches and served as a great medium to easily memorize verses from the Bible. In between classes and church activities, I worked part-time at Ohio State's Media Services in Lord Hall. That sounds like a nice place to work. I was cleaning movie projectors and delivering film projectors to classrooms and lecture halls. It was there that I met Steve Puffenberger, a talented film and media expert who had created a multimedia presentation called I Love to Tell the Story. Inspired by the spellbinding, amazing media, I invested in 2 Kodak slide projectors and a dissolve unit to create my own multimedia presentation called Vision. Vision was complete with a live band. We would set up Vision in the dormitory lobbies, put up posters, and invite students to come and experience this vision of life with God at the center. It was during my time at Ohio State that I met an attractive co-ed named Susan Eady from Mason, Ohio. She was attending our OSU Bible studies with her close friends Jenny Matson and Carol Foster. When I first laid eyes on Susan from afar, it was on the 15th floor of Lincoln Tower. I was smitten.
The door slid open, her eyes first met. I felt my future beating in my chest. We found a love that would last forever. Yeah.
Over the course of 3 years, I kept a healthy distance from Susan. We would see each other at church activities, often together in large groups, but we never dated. Then in August of '79, out of nowhere, I asked Susan if she would consider marrying me. Remarkably, she said yes, then quickly came to her senses and said, let's not move too fast here, I really need some time to think about this. So I waited a whole 10 days, which seemed like eternity, until she said yes again. We had a short 3-week engagement before we were married at the King Street Methodist Church on the south side of campus. Our low-budget wedding reception was held at one of the student union facilities. We even shared tuxedos, bridesmaid dresses, and flowers with my Daystar friend Jim Snedeker and his new wife Jeannie, who were married the day before us. In the early 80s, my wife and I decided to spread our wings and move east to be a part of a campus ministry at the University of Maryland. It was there I put together a new outreach band.
Okay, we're going to run from the top and have you lay the rhythm all the way through. We're rolling.
When visiting Michigan State University in East Lansing, I was introduced to a student named Lance Zeccanato. I remember our brief chat where we both shared a common desire to keep music at the center of our lives, combined with our ministry aspirations. Lance handed me a demo tape and mentioned he played guitar. When I popped the tape in my cassette player at home, I was blown away by this wall of sound. Also in Michigan, I met a woman named Iris Proctor, a talented singer who was a vocal major at the University of Michigan. Now, as a Buckeye, I don't usually associate with Wolverines, but I guess the Lord works in mysterious ways. I shared my vision with Lance and Iris to pull together a touring band that would play positive, secular music and provide a platform for me and others to share our faith story. The original name for the band was appropriately Crossover, which included some of my former bandmates from Columbus, Dave Clutch on keys, Ed Fedor on bass guitar. Also, Tony Moe from Maryland played sax and ran sound, while Dave Murray from Kansas produced our lighting. After many of the new band members had relocated to Maryland to rehearse for our tour, I received a startling diagnosis of testicular cancer. My surgery was quickly scheduled for May 1st, 1986, followed up by weeks of radiation therapy. I was very sick. Our first Southern tour was scheduled for the fall. Even though I was weak from my treatments and lost a bunch of weight, we loaded up our gear in a budget rental truck and headed out on the road under the name Network. I'll never forget Network's show at North Carolina State University in Raleigh. During my testimonial, I shared I was recovering from cancer. I confessed I wasn't certain about my future on this planet, but I knew the one who held my future. In what could be a typically rowdy or sometimes hostile environment, you could hear a pin drop in that auditorium. I would never say I'm glad I had cancer, but I could clearly see the dynamic effect it was having on others as they listened intently to my every word. In addition to playing colleges in the U.S., Network also toured in Germany in the summer of 1988. Guitarist Dave Weber and singer Kendrick Halliburton joined us as we performed in 3 cities along the Rhine River, including Cologne. For fun, we broke away for a couple of days of sightseeing. We rented a VW van and took off towards Berlin. I was driving and not paying close enough attention to the international symbols on my dashboard. Apparently, I'd been glancing at the battery indicator, thinking that was our fuel gauge, until it was too late and we ran out of gas on the Autobahn. We didn't know what to do, so Tony, who spoke a little German, called the local police from an emergency phone on the highway. The police asked if we had $100, and they would be on their way. In the meantime, a very nice German man pulled over and gave us some Bleifrei, German for unleaded gas. We mentioned that we were waiting for the police to come help us. He informed us that they were not coming to help us, but to fine us, since it's against the law to run out of gas on the Autobahn. So we quickly got back on the road and got out of there without a citation. We were truly a band on the run. Network produced a few videos of covers like The Heat Is On. In 1990, Network recorded an album called Songs for the Journey, including 9 scripture songs I wrote that we performed at church services and student conferences. The band also performed regularly in the D.C. area, like at a Say No to Drugs assembly at Paint Branch High School, and as the headline act at the annual Independence Day celebration in downtown Columbia, Maryland. We also participated with other musicians from our church like Viscount Thurston, Steve Huda, Hans Meter, Steve Namey, Jeannie Finnegan, and Dennis Clark in 10 consecutive years of the popular Valley Brook Christmas show called An Evening in December. In 1996, I was experiencing high anxiety over a potential career change. Here I was, 40 years old, now at another major crossroad. In one sense, I was just happy to have survived my bout with cancer, but I knew the world was a bigger place than my relatively smaller church world. So I took a break from performing music, left Valley Brook Community Church, and against all odds, I received a job offer with the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra as their audience development manager. I'll never forget Linda Moxley, the BSO's VP of Marketing, told me she picked my resume out of hundreds of applicants on her hunch that my music marketing skills in a very unchurched community like Columbia, Maryland, would translate well into bringing people like me to the Symphony Hall. It was at the Meyerhoff Symphony Hall where I promoted and met many world-renowned musicians like Yo-Yo Ma, Joshua Bell, and Marvin Hamlisch. I remember having dinner with Marvin Hamlisch and asking him what he thought the key to his worldwide success was. His answer was simple: be ready when the door of opportunity opens. It may only happen once. I'd have to say those 3 transformative years with the Baltimore Symphony provided me a much-needed confidence boost, showing me I could be successful in marketing music and earn a small living to help provide for my young family. My vocational success with the BSO opened up a new door of opportunity with Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida. In July of 1998, our young family resettled in Orlando for what would be a 20-year focus on my marketing career with Universal Studios, Marriott Vacation Club, Gold Key Resorts in Virginia Beach, and Starwood. During those 20 years, in addition to playing drums for various church services in Orlando, I played an occasional smooth jazz gig with Matt the Saxman. During this time of focus on my marketing career, I did begin writing songs again and recording them at Full Sail Studios with some talented Orlando musicians like David Blair on bass, Barry Hall, and Rocky Berra. With their help and others, I self-produced 2 albums called Every Step
I'm tired of being your mind reader, looking for clues to figure you out.
and Through This Fog.
Free, free, free to love. You are free to love. Free, free, free to love. You are free to love.
In 2012, while working at Starwood, I ran into Brian Schwartz, a musician from the Discovery Church where I played drums, who just happened to work in our finance department. He mentioned there was a company talent show coming up, and he knew of a couple musicians, John Budnick, who played bass, and vocalist Tom Becker from his department, that might be interested in putting together a band to audition for the show. Well, we gathered at my home in the Metro West area of Orlando and made an audition video performing What I Like About You. Somehow our inexperienced band of accountants and marketing associates passed the audition, and we prepared for our debut at Starwood's annual Associate Celebration event. We performed just one song at Disney's Dolphin Resort on a big stage in front of thousands of our coworkers. We needed a name for a band, so we came up with Power Surge, since Serge Rivera was our CEO at the time. I don't think anyone in the band was prepared for the enthusiastic reaction from our work comrades. And we began playing at local venues like Bar Louie. Our first Bar Louie gig was an after party following up our second Starwood Celebration event. The venue was packed with our fans wearing their Starwood t-shirts, dancing and having a good time with their homegrown band. The bar owner came up to me and said, "You may not be the greatest band to ever play here, but you sure bring a lot of people." In addition to performing live around town at venues like Bar Louie, Cricketers Pub, and Bloodhound Brew, Power Surge evolved into Power Grid, with a new guitarist named Ramses Cairo. With Ramses, we booked time at the Full Sail Studios to record our first album of all original classic rock style music, including Myra. After a year or so, Ramses left the band to perform in a duo with his wife Amy, and we met Mike Norcia, a talented guitarist from Tampa, through an advertisement on Craigslist. Mike breathed new life into the band, both for live shows and in the studio, helping us with our second album and on songs like Force of Nature.
It's magic, big magic.
It was during one of our recording sessions at Full Sail that we met a student named Alan Retman. During one of our session breaks, Alan and I went out to grab a sandwich. He mentioned to me that he played guitar and was an experienced recording engineer. Our guitar player was sick that night, so Alan offered to track some guitar and mix the song we were working on. The results were amazing, and we had Alan finish mixing our second album called Off the Grid. In 2014, I had a piano bench full of original indie pop style songs and asked Alan if he would be interested in producing an album for me. At the time, Alan was working with a talented singer named McKinney Griffin from Orlando. When Alan shared with me their collaboration of A Rock and a Hard Place, I asked, how do we get that guy to sing our songs?
If you want the answer, deep down inside you, there is eternity.
The three of us met at Alan's place on the east side of Orlando to discuss the project. McKinney said, why don't we call ourselves Yesterday's Future? One of the songs from our debut album was called Rocket Girl. It was inspired by the book Malala, about a young education advocate from Pakistan.
When you hear this song and you see this video, you think about her story, do you really think it captures exactly who she is?
I do.
Morning Light is also a favorite and continues to get many streams and plays with our fans globally. After our first album was released in 2015, we were invited to perform live at a couple of Orlando venues. After a year or so of playing live together, McKinney decided to pursue his career ambitions in LA, while Alan headed back to his home in Michigan. With McKinney and Alan no longer available to play live shows, I started to perform with other talented musicians like bass player TJ Malillan, singer and keyboardist Tori Wold, and her multi-instrument dad, Tony Wold. 5 years later, after the debut of Yesterday's Future self-titled album, the original trio of Alan, McKinney, and myself are working on a second album called Big Magic.
'Cause it's magic, big magic, and it's why I like it. Yeah, it's magic, big magic.
Thanks to online musician websites, I was able to collaborate with many gifted musicians like Ani Saxon,
Why are you so hard on yourself? God knows you're not perfect.
Clay Collins,
Things have turned out better than I thought. I admit that I have my doubts.
and Nathan Nasby.
Wherever you go, whatever you do, there's somebody out there, someone who needs you.
I also met a talented producer-musician from Venezuela named Alfredo Reed. From our online sessions came 2 albums, Echoes of Faith, released in 2018, and Make You Smile in 2019. Now it's been over 50 years from my original musical spark that ignited while watching The Beatles on Ed Sullivan. I can relate to Sir Paul's question, Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? I certainly enjoyed all the memories of playing in bands with so many talented and good people over the decades. When I listen to my songs today, all I can think about is the people and the places those songs trigger in my aging memory. I know I'm not the greatest musician in the world, but as long as I can still make music and share music with my friends and family, I'm all in. And at the end of this life, I have one remaining question.
Did I make you smile? Bring you joy? Did I make the most of what you gave to me? Did I love each one along my way and leave behind a legacy?